What's up, y'all? This is Chitty Bang, and I'm on the Renegade Millionaire Show, the podcast that profiles entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs. Join us as we go one-on-one inside the hearts and minds of some of our generation's best and brightest. And now, introducing your host, my friend, Sun Group Wealth Partners Managing Director, CNBC and Forbes.com contributor, Winnie Sun.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Renegade Millionaire Show. This is your host, Winnie Sun, welcoming you from beautiful Venice Beach here at TuneIn Studios. It's a hot summer day again, but we are excited to be here because today's guest is someone I've been looking forward to speaking with for a couple weeks now. As you know, I'm financial advisor and managing partner at Sun Group Wealth Partners here in beautiful SoCal. And you can take a moment to follow me on Twitter because, I'll let you know when I'm on CNBC again, and you can follow my posts on Forbes. If you didn't get a chance to take a look at my Forbes post, I just finished a piece and uploaded it on Forbes.com, my piece on my very good friend, Randy Jackson. So take a look. I hope you enjoy it. And with that, I'm super excited to introduce you to my new friend, Daphne Wayans, who I gotta tell you, she walked in the studio. She is absolutely stunning. I knew that she would be stunning from doing research on her, but I didn't know. Actually, my content producer, my good friend Susie, said, when you see her, you're not going to be able to take your eyes off her. It's going to be the weirdest thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm a mom, and she's a mom. I mean, we're just going to talk like moms. Like, no, just trust me. I'm like, and now that I've seen you, I understand why.
Thank you for that, Susie.
And thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
We're really excited. So let's talk. I mean, as a mom of three, my kids, I have three, 6 and under, and there are days where it's just, I don't know how I juggle it all, being a working mom and having children. But I can only imagine what it was and is like for you. Because, Daphne, you have 5 beautiful babies.
Yes.
They're not babies anymore, but 5 beautiful.
I call them babies. We call them babies forever until I say stop.
And on top of that, you had one of the most difficult jobs, I think, on the planet, meaning that you were a spouse of a full-blown Hollywood heavyweight.
Yes.
A gentleman that I don't even know who he is. Maybe you could tell us who he was.
Mm-hmm. Well, who he is and who he was my husband, was-been as we call him, and who he is is Keenan Ivory Wayans.
And I guess you met, I read the bio, I thought it was so sweet. You met at such a young age.
Yes.
Right?
At the time, I didn't think it was young because when you're young, you don't necessarily know. But in hindsight, I could see that was very young because I look at my children, I'm like, oh my God, if you were in this situation, I'd be having a hard time. And I can only call it a sort of destiny, like we had something to do together. But yes, we met at a very young age, and he was already, getting very well into his career, and he was just before he started his big project in Living Color, which everyone heard of. And I always say,
a little show called Living Color.
A little show called Living Color. A few little people from there called Jennifer Lopez and Jim Carrey and Jamie Foxx came from there. But I always say everyone knows, or at least has heard of, there's so many Wayans, has heard of one or a few
Wayans.
of them, right? They just confuse them all and clump them all into one of the Wayans. There are many other families, maybe like, the Jackson family is another one where you just go, one of the Jacksons.
Right.
Very few families in this business that you can say that. So yes, he's Keenan Ivory Wayans, and
he's a good friend of yours.
Yeah. We had to reformat our family post-divorce. And so...
And that's what I want to talk about today. I know that's usually a subject people don't like to talk about, but that's something we've asked Daphne to share with us because what I wanted to talk about, which is something that us as parents struggle with all the time, is we feel like not only is there a lot of social pressure to be a good parent, but at the end of the day, who cares about what other people think? As a parent, we want to raise really solid, strong, and kind children.
Yes.
And you've been very successful in doing so. Not once, not twice, but 5 times. And what I found very remarkable is you started at such a young age. So there's kind of a brilliance there. If you can kind of share with me, I read your bio. You grew up as an only child. How does an only child raise 5 fabulous children?
Well, I like to say that I have 75 plus 80, roughly 80 years worth of parenting under my belt, even though I look young for that. Because you raise them individually, even though you're gaining more and more experience as you have days, but they are individuals and you can't necessarily parent them as a group. You know, what applies for one may not apply to the other, because these are
so true.
These are not like
they're not like robots,
right? They're not robots. They're not like boxes of things. They are beings, and they have their own. They come with their own personalities, and they just come with their own beingness, right? And then you have yours, and then you have to find where you congeal and where you mesh, right? And I just had a few stable datums, like little things that sort of anchored me in the parenting, because I didn't necessarily know what I was doing. I probably parent a little differently than my parents. My parents gave me like some very good, solid things to work with, but I was kind of doing it on my own. And I didn't know what to expect. I was a little bewildered at first. I just knew I was having a baby. Right. And then I had a baby and I was like, whoa, like you're really here. Okay. Then I didn't know all the things that I'd have to figure out. And I still am having to figure them out. I'm having to figure out how to be a mother to children entering adulthood, which is
scary.
Its own. It's like having a newborn baby again. I'm like, whoa, okay, here we are. It's not over. You know, people tell you, oh, when they're 18, it's done. You're out of the house. It's so not done. It's so, not when your heart's invested in that way.
Right.
And you want to see them do well. And I noticed there are a few things that I really want to change in the way the Western world sort of parents, because it doesn't always parent them in a way that prepares them for adulthood. So that's another aspect I'm discovering just today.
Well, let me talk about that. So how old were you when you had your first child?
As a baby, I was 20.
Wow, that is young.
I mean, that's young by American standards, right?
It is young, though.
But I like that I had them young because...
Now they look like your brothers and sisters now.
Yeah, they look like that, but also they're really, really my friends. And we really do things together as friends.
That's interesting, because I hear some parents will say, well, I want to be their parent, not necessarily their friend, but you've accomplished both. I hear, rumor is, that you run a pretty tough household.
I do in a kind of way that I make them a part of it. It's not me and them, it's us, right? This is us and this is our home, and people come over and they're like, God, you have so many rules, but it's like a mini town, and if we don't have those things, it's like things aren't in order. But at the same time, when they go, God, there's so many like things to know about this house, and I say there are so many people, and at the same time they'll go, God, it's so tranquil here, it's so nice and pleasant, it's not, things don't run. It's not like an anarchy society. And so at the same time that I'm able to achieve that too, where it's, it's like a tranquil and peaceful home, and it's fun, and it's, it's kind of a magical place. We call it the vortex because people never want to leave.
I love that.
Yeah, I call it my sanctuary. Others call it like something, it's like this thing they get stuck in, or Daphne land, they'll call it, where they just can't get out, and they don't want to also. But, so that's really nice. But I guess
your children, I know, I'm in agreement with you here as well. I've been to different people's houses and their children are running all over the place. And my house is the same way in that I have three, like yours, I have three boys under the age of 6. But if you walk in the house, it's not crazy. The house doesn't look like a war zone. There's no markings on the wall. And the children are nice and neat and well behaved. And they listen when you talk to them.
That's right.
And I feel that that's a responsibility we have to our children.
That's right.
Because they feel safe in this environment.
And they can predict what's going to happen, and they start to know and take responsibility for it. And the other thing I find that people don't want to talk about that for me is a successful action is all of that is done, and I've never once laid a finger on them.
Exactly.
Some people do that.
Me too.
I'm not a spanker. I'm not a hitter. I don't do that, and I'm not doing that to my favorite people on earth. I'm not cool with it.
Right.
And
me too. I don't agree with it.
I don't know how to. I mean, some people do it, and they have the reasons they do it, and it seems to work for them. But to me, it's even more of an accomplishment when I can say I have all of this agreement. It's not like like even that they're being compliant. I make it I'm able to give it to them in such a way that they want to be in harmony with it. It's on their own volition. It's not like I've scared them into it or it's a mind trip or they're afraid of, it's under some kind of coercion. It's not that. It's very simple. And there are a few things I've always said to them. One is, well, what do you think should I put them? I always make them responsible. And I say, what do you think should happen with that? Or why would that be okay to not do? I mean, I have it, and this is a conversation I have literally every single day. So one of my children yesterday, if I can just share with you, yesterday she was in a funky mood about having to clean her space and keep her space tidy. And I said, oh, okay, well, if you think the little thing I'm asking you to do is so difficult, let's just do the entire thing. Every single corner, every single everything. And then she was still like, I'm like, who are you mad at? Who are you upset at? This is your space and it should be kept nice. And once she started to see like that it wasn't really ideal, even she was a little bit like her attitude changed and she was a little bit like, yeah, whoa, okay, I should like be more mindful of this.
This is my space.
Yeah, I should be mindful of my space. I said, nothing else in the rest of the house looks like this, so why would this be okay? And then she started looking around like, oh, okay, that's kind of gross. Or yeah, and I said to her, a little bit more often is better than going long periods, then it's more work. And she could see that. And I said, so we're going to work on this every single day for just, this amount of time. And then her attitude shifted about it after like 3 days of me going, okay, every day for 2 hours, we're going to focus.
That's kind of
very,
deep,
very
Daphne.
focused, right?
I love this.
But I just sat there and I just, like was doing my social media and I just give her orders. Check on this, check on that. And I didn't ever get upset with her, but she was upset with me or the situation or something. And I asked, what would you be doing instead? And how would you feel if I didn't take care of the other parts? Mm-hmm. And once she started to look at that, and I said, what if I just didn't take you to school? Or what if I didn't buy groceries and you just came home or you went to take a shower and there was no
water.
And it was like, angry that you wanted that. How would you feel? Mm-hmm. And I had her be me for a moment. And then she could see like, oh, okay, well, I could see that. And her attitude completely shifted about it.
How old is she?
That one is 11, I think.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. And then, but I've done that with all of them. So the others are like very willing. So they don't wait for me to say something. Like the oldest, right, who would be the opposite, the other end of this baby, or the youngest, she comes to me and she says, I'm going to go do whatever. Before I leave, is there anything you need my help with? Aww. And she originates that. She comes up with the idea herself, which is like, as a mom, how much there is to do when someone says,
can I help?
Right. And I never, ever deny their help. I'll just think of something because I want to satisfy the other end of that the person is like reaching out and extending their help to you. So I'll go, yeah, I need help with this. Can you help do this? Even if it's the most simple thing, I never, ever say no. I always say, yes, of course. And thank you so much. So I can like give them a lot of show them a lot of gratitude that they like just thought of that on their own. And I always say thank you. That I really appreciate that. That was I appreciate you asking.
That's incredible. Well, I'm going to ask you one mom thing, one tip since I have you here. I feel like I need to capitalize on this.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Having had 5 children and knowing that mine are young, what's your technique to time out? Or what do you do to discipline?
Well, I wouldn't say there are things I would say I take away, which is like phones and devices and things like that. My kids that's what they're into. Or I won't give my help anymore. I won't give my help anymore, and I'll put in a little more work to do to make up for that. And then I'll say, okay, these things are privileges. I take away the privileges more than my kids aren't the age where I can do time out. But in a way, I do kind of do time out. And I'll go, why don't you go for a walk and then let's talk? Or why don't we're kind of beyond that. I've done it so much that at a certain point, you don't have to do that. You can just handle it more like a friend.
Right.
Where you say, look, let's talk about this right now. Right. But when they were younger, I would say, why don't you go for a walk? Or I'm going to go for a walk. Or I'd say to them, I don't know this part of parenting, so let me just think. I don't even know what I'm doing. And when I say that, it kind of chills out a situation. When I say, I don't know what I'm doing as like to the oldest, I'd say, I never parented a teenager. I never parented this age. So give me a moment to even think about how I feel, because initially I want to feel this way about it. And so my kids got to the point where, especially Nala, where she'd say to me, I get it. I got it. I'm wrong. Because sometimes I get into like just being a mom and like, I'm going to just ruin your life about things.
That's amazing.
And Nala would say, Mommy, I got it, that I was wrong in that. I'm trying to correct it now. And you're not letting me. And I go, okay, right. So, and I'd have to stop. So I allow them sometimes to kind of talk to me as a mother in things that they feel like aren't necessary. I'm always open to talk about things that may not be fair. I'm never like, I said that and that's it. But I try to get them to understand, so things are a little bit more of their volition.
Well, let's talk about this. I find this very fascinating. You have a tremendous amount of wisdom in you. I mean, like we touched about in the beginning, there's probably no more difficult job than to be the spouse of a major celebrity. And you were for a very, very long time. And yet you come out of this, I think, with so much grace, but also so much internal wisdom. Like, you're so grounded, and like you come in, like, I just feel this aura about you. There's this calmness and confidence. And you can see this because it's evident in the way that you've raised 5 children. But we should also talk about your amazing relationship that I'm sure so many people know the statistics. I mean, most marriages, and I say most because it's a majority, end in a separation or divorce. As much as we hate to talk about it, that's reality. And yet, these are people that loved each other for many, many years, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And they've separated. In some situations, there's so much angst and anger and bitterness. But in your situation, I mean, I want to talk about this because I find it to be so brilliant and so simple, but so practical. The thing that, as a working mother and being as busy as we are, we're always talking about how can we make things simpler and more practical. But the fact that you and your ex-husband right now live 5 houses apart, I feel that is so brilliant, because it's saying to me as a parent looking at this, saying, I put my children first. How can I make it so it's easiest on my children? If my father was 5 states away and I had to get on a plane to see my dad every time, I probably wouldn't see my dad that often. That's right? And also for a child, that's very stressful, and that change is not something that we signed up for.
That's right.
But I feel I would love if you could share with us this brilliance, I call it brilliance, I know you didn't, of your relationship with Keenan.
Well, it's now brilliant, but at the time it wasn't. It was tumultuous, and it wasn't necessarily planned like that, because you hear the term divorce and you think about like it's already antagonistic and bad. And so that's already wrong, Thing one, it's not a divorce, especially when you have children. It's a reformatting or reconfiguration of the family.
Was it ugly in the beginning?
It was disgusting. It was ugly and nasty. And part of it is you're just caught up in the word divorce. Sounds like so gruesome. So you're caught up in this gruesomeness. But if someone said, oh, let's reconfigure our family. Let's still care about each other and be friends and be the parents of our children. And still, because it doesn't speak to all of the in-laws and the shared friends and the world that you've built. So now everyone is just in this nasty split. So, in-laws are deciding why
did you split?
5 million reasons why anyone splits. Not any one reason, but also kind of the natural progression of growing up and growing. And you don't always know who you're going to be when you're
get older.
Like 17 or 18, and then you become a woman. You don't know who you're going to be and how that's going to fit into the relationship. So for whatever reasons, we divorced. I don't want to get into that part of it, but what I knew was that we'd built many years of a friendship. My best friend. So imagine your best friend like wanting to not be together anymore. Mm-hmm. Then you want to just. Then it becomes a thing of like you want to be together because you want someone to be there because you want to be there, right?
Yeah.
So then you have to figure out, okay, then what are we? Because we're not husband and wife anymore, which is it's fine if you both are fine with that. Mm-hmm. What are we? Not what aren't we? We are parents to these children. That we knew. Mm-hmm. I wanted to always behave in a way that I was proud of. So there were certain things I was really trying not to do because it just like, I think you get into like your ego a little bit and you get into your feelings a little bit more than being practical. So I sound very practical about it now. Mm-hmm. He likely sounds very practical about it now. Us being the distance that we are in the proximity between homes wasn't a calculated decision that this would make the most sense.
Oh, this wasn't from the beginning.
No, we didn't decide that from the beginning. But in the end, we just made it work. A lot of things weren't working. It was like taking your whole organized life that's working upside down, shaking it up, turning it inside out, and then dumping it out, and then saying, okay, so tomorrow is tomorrow. And you're like, no, but everything is upside down, backwards, backwards, and inside out. It's not the same tomorrow. It's a completely different tomorrow. And I don't even know, where I would go from point A to B, and I know how to do that in my sleep. That isn't going to work. It's like a minefield that I'm doing that in now. So we had to figure out what we were. And I think we both realized, why are we throwing away this friendship that we had and we enjoyed so much, and our the thing that kept me, we were fighting so much in the beginning, but the thing that kept me from having an explosion every time was I kept saying, what is the thing that we share reality about? We both love our children. So in the beginning, a lot of the times I'd preface everything else I needed to speak to him about, maybe something about being divorced or something between us. I'd preface it with something funny or nice or something about our children. I go, oh, it was really funny, because I knew he'd have that same reality. And I really use that a lot. And then one day I realized, okay, let me talk to my friend, because that was always my friend throughout. And I kind of lost my friend in it. And that's what I was really missing. So let me talk to my friend or my old friend or but let me just speak to that person. Not my ex-husband, not my children's dad, but just my friend, in a way that I would speak to a friend that I had been fighting with for a time. And then once we started to speak to each other in that way, we were able to really come back to something that we'd always had, which was that we really loved each other and we were really good friends, and we had we both loved the same thing. The thing that we loved most was exactly the same. It wasn't like kids. It was these kids we both loved more than anything in the world. So that was, it was really, really helpful. And
it's good. I mean, it's interesting.
And it was good for my kids to see, because they also got to see us go through it. And what I realized is they never, ever, ever wanted to be in the middle of anything. So if I ever tried to like mention anything, they would close their ears about it. Like, I don't want to hear one side or the other at all.
So it's gotten to a point now where it's I call it sheer brilliance. Because from what I understand is the 5 kids spend 1 week with you and then 1 week with Dad, which is only 5 doors down, right? And they all go together.
Yes, I don't take one kid. If I take one, I might as well take one. Is more annoying than 5. I mean, 5 is fun. 1 is like, I want to just cut my wrist. So no, we don't do that. We don't do like, a few kids. It's 5 or none. And usually when it's 5, it's like 8 or 9 because they have their friends also. But now we all love it. Like they all, now one of my children was saying to their friends, like, I don't know how you stay with both your parents every single day forever. I would go nuts. And someone said, like, oh, it drives me crazy. I don't ever know which house you're at. They go, can you just stay with both your parents all the time? She goes, no, I would, because at the end of, I always call it the sweet spot, like how much time together before it starts to go bad and how much time apart before that starts to go bad. So that's our sweet spot. 1 week together is like enough for us to be kind of on this high of like, oh my God, I'm so excited to see you, my favorite people. And then at the end of the week, it like gets a little bit, it starts to wane and you go, not so much. Like, yeah, maybe I need like a little bit of quiet time. And they're like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And they walk down the street and they go and it's the same thing like, wee, here we are again. And then like after a week, like, okay. And it's nice. They have, the exact same 2 houses and a few things are different. They can appreciate, they actually get to appreciate their parents for who they are, like as my mom, not my mom with my dad, because the parents aren't really like leaning on each other so much. So I had to learn the things that he was doing and he had to learn the things that I was doing. So they can like really look cleanly and see who does what. What are the strengths here and what are the strengths there and what are the weaknesses, and really appreciate that. And people always ask them, like, we really should have had them, like, and we'll come back maybe sometime.
Yeah,
we'll have
sure.
all
we'll have you all here. That would be
it's really
brilliant.
dynamic. It's so dynamic. We'll do that sometimes because they have like a tremendous amount to say. That's always really fun.
I love it. Well, that I just love this. I can just picture it. So let me ask you this. So you guys can never move then?
We can move. We can definitely move.
You gotta find 2 houses.
We can definitely move because they're also just getting older now. So, but, and the dynamics sort of change when they get older. And they still, as much as they're my favorite people. And, I can't even imagine, like, not living life with them. I told them even when they get married, we're going to have to be neighbors or something. I'm going to be neighbors with them.
Well, I want to talk about that also. I mean, that's another thing that I admire. I mean, I followed you briefly on Instagram and whatnot. And we'll make sure that everybody listening gets those handles. But you have like some pretty cool friends.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your friends are people that we all admire and look up to. You hang out with, I just saw you were hanging out with Alicia Keys, you got Pharrell, you got some pretty incredible friends. Yeah. I know that they're just your friends, but these are like full-blown A-listers. And when you came in here earlier, I wanted you to share this on the air because I understand this, but I felt like it was so sincere. Obviously these are people that everybody wants to get in front of.
Yeah.
And you had shared with me that you basically you've been on the air, you've had so much personal success on your own. And so, but these are longtime friends of yours.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's a lot of companies that will come to you like, Daphne, we could do this with this. And can you get Alicia or Pharrell? And what do you say when that happens?
People sometimes want to use me as the via because I'm a little, I don't have any vias between, if you're my friend and I wouldn't go to your person to speak to you. I'd speak directly to you. So in that these are my friendships and I consider them like my family. As an only kid, you like start to make everyone your family. But, they really are. I refer to them as my siblings, really. And I just communicate things directly to them. I don't go to their people even though I want to respect those lines, but our friendship is with each other. And so people feel like they can come to me and just tell them this little thing, or, we have this thing we want to offer to them, and it's always amazing, and it's always the greatest thing. And
the best thing ever.
It's always the best thing ever, and they're going to benefit so much. But these people have set up communication lines for a reason, so that they're streamlined a certain way. The agent, the manager, all of the people, right? All of them for a particular reason, and that's because that's what they go to them for, and
they're
that's
gatekeepers.
their hack. That's right. And so they feel like, let me bypass that and go to Daphne. And my standard line is for those people, I have an agreement with them to not bring any of this to them. This is like I hold a sacred space with them, and I would never speak to them. I literally get phone calls every single day for some of these people, every day. And I would just be sitting there reporting things like, oh, this one wants you to do that, and that one wants you to do this. And some of them will say to me like, oh, if you think it's a good idea, you always let me know. Like if you think it's something, I'm sort of an opinion leader to opinion leaders, I've been called. And so they'll say, if you think, but I don't even want to get involved in that, I will still streamline it to the right person. Like, oh, the agent likes, someone called me yesterday and wanted to this big thing for Alicia Keys to perform at. And I said to her, that sounds really amazing, but I will not take that to her. But I will,
the manager.
Right. I'll get you the number. And I let them know, like, oh, it sounds interesting, but here, expect a call from them or whatever. And that's their job to weed that out. And it's really sort of my role to be an escape from that. And that's what's really valued. And they know that they can come to me and, there are things that they want to talk to me about, or they want some help with in their life, and they trust me. So the trust is really there because I never violate that. I never put them in harm's way, or I never let that other stuff influence me. And obviously, I feel like when some things are mine and they're appropriate, they're very interested to exchange that flow of power to each other. And they say to me like, oh, like for you, my friend, like anyone else, you would share your things about your friendship with them. So I keep that space really, where maybe someone else I might share that with if they're interested, and it's not, things don't come in the same volume where people are coming at you all the time with so many things. It can actually be traffic, and that's the agreement, I guess I could say, is that I don't want to add traffic to their life. I'm there to be like a different kind of a friend, and that's where the value comes in.
Yeah, I can see being your friend would be amazing because you would be, like you had talked about earlier, you would be the vortex. It would be like a calm, relaxed, I just need a Daphne moment.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, people say it all the time. They just need like a little bit of Daphne time, or they'll just come and steal it, or they're like anything. Like, I don't care. I'll like do carpool with you or whatever. And for some reason that gets added. But I was going to tell you, I always have the intention to when I go into a friendship or into someone's space, I feel like they're giving me their time and space. So I want to leave intact or better than when I got there. I don't want to
like... There's a quote like that, right? Like, leave wherever you go a better place.
Right. And so I have that intention with every encounter because I can do that. And so just that thought already makes it better. Otherwise, I don't need to spend my time. I mean, it's the most precious thing I have. So if I have a moment to, sometimes I see some people in their career or their work, they're just treated like a thing and bypass. And I can just stop for a moment and like really acknowledge that person and thank them so much for their help. So I have the intention for all of my friends or anyone I encounter to leave it just a little bit better than when I got there. I don't have to, because I know also I could trample over a situation too. I have that same ability, and that's not really the what I want to leave the person with.
Yeah, this is beautiful. It almost reminds me a little of Oprah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in
That's
some
cool.
ways.
I like her.
Yeah,
so that's good.
That kind of, it's like there's an incredible wisdom about you. And I imagine that your parents were quite wise.
They had some really good basic skills, I'll say. They didn't have like any technique that they were doing. They weren't really that kind of people, but they just did a few really write things that I really appreciate. And
They must be very grounded people.
yes, extremely. But the biggest thing I could say, there were about 10 things that they did exceptionally well. And one of them was they never told me there were things I couldn't do. So I never had the sense that there was anything I couldn't do. And I'm still like that. Like, I'll go to the store and they'll say, yeah, we're closed. And I'll go, okay. Like, does that mean you're opening now because I'm here? Or, not in a way that's obtrusive or rude, but like, I don't really have that perception that I can't have the things that I want in life. Like, maybe I have to go about it a little bit, more differently, but not in a way that that again is obtrusive. And so because they never were like, you can't do this or you can't do that and you're supposed to do this and that, I didn't have that, like, a bit of naivete about things that you weren't supposed to do or I couldn't do, made it so that I could do anything and everything and I could have anything and everything, So that was really helpful as well.
So what's ahead of what are you working on now?
Well, I'm always doing my MK collab, which is my collaboration with Marissa Kinson, who I know you know as well. I'm really excited about.
Oh, good. So, I mean, you're dressed to T. You look beautiful today. Is that Marissa?
MK collab. Yeah, this is Marissa Kinson as well. I like to wear her all the time. They're really things that I really wear. I don't just promote them. I would never... That wouldn't be me if I just was into something that is not real in my life, but it's very real in my life. And it's so beautiful because I needed a way I was talking to women about the importance of, I'm probably maybe a little bit opposite in that you have a career that you do outside of the home. My career is and was the home. My husband and my children. So that's what I always wanted to be, a mother and a wife. And so that's what I didn't see anyone else doing that as a career or calling it a career. They were like,
but it is a career.
Well, they would say, but what else? Like, that's not anything. And even now, people come to me all the time. They go, what do you do? I say, I'm a mother. And then they like kind of stumble and pause. They're like, but what else? Like, there has to be more. And so I realized I wanted to really talk to women about that role because I feel like in the pursuit of their careers that has taken like really quite a back seat. And you can see, I look at everything and I'm saying, my children always like tease that their dad says the problem with the world is gluten. I always say the problem with the world is mothers not being mothers or women not being women.
I completely agree.
Right. That's what I say. Everything I go, they're like the street lights broke. I'm like, well, if mothers would just be mothers or if women would just be women, and not necessarily like compete with men, but more like work together. And so when I'm talking about this, women are like, yeah, but I'm a single mom and I don't have this, rich ex-husband who supports me and I don't have this and that. And I have to work and I want to make my own money and all these things. And I'm like looking around thinking, God, what can women do that, they're not sitting at home baking bread and selling loaves of bread and still be, not have to choose between being a wife and a mother and having a career. What can they do? And this came about, and I was already friends with Marissa and doing some things with her. And when I saw that she was reformatting her company, I was like, wow, this is exactly what's needed. This will allow women to do what they want and need and love, and have some have a lot of ability and not have to choose between this or that, being a mother or that, being a wife or making money. Because, how do you choose? Why can't you have it all? So I saw that this was like an opportunity where women could, the way it's set up.
So what's your store called, or
the e-boutique?
Yeah.
Well, it's Daphne Wayans for MarissaKinson.com, but it's also on my website, which is just Daphne Wayans, and it's so much fun. I feel like, I'm mentoring some women now in how to do this. And, sometimes if you say to women like, oh, start your own e-boutique, like the idea of that can be so unconfrontable and scary. And this takes that out of it. And we're able to help them in a way that empowers them. So I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And with that, they can look as beautiful as you in a little
They
way.
can, and they can share it all as well.
Yay, I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a complete delight having you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and I hope that we stay in touch because you are just an inspiration.
Thank you.
You
that
really
would be
are.
my pleasure. I'd love that.
Wonderful. Well, with that, I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening with us. I hope that you enjoy this as much as I do. But big thank you to Daphne Wayans for taking time out of her schedule and doing the trek over to Venice Beach. We just love having her. And so those of you who want to stay in touch, please do between shows. You can follow me at winniesun.com. I'm really active on Twitter at SunGroupWP. But most importantly, Daphne, how do people keep in touch with you and follow all of your new exciting ways?
Well, it's very easy. It's just Daphne Wayans. So DaphneWayans.com is my website. And I think we're relaunching, so that's exciting. and then at Daphne Wayans on Twitter, at Daphne Wayans on Instagram, and Daphne Wayans on Facebook.
Great.
So,
And do you do your own social media?
I do most of it.
Very good.
I do most of it. So
that's good.
I apologize
if you reach out, she'll reach back out.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I love when people reach out to me. I love it so much.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And it was awesome talking to you. And with that, we will talk to you next time.
Thank you.